Let's talk about the piston. Let's go back and catch up. Let's catch up some stuff. These I had these wrist pins out the other day with a micrometer on them, and if you remember, there was actually no wire. They was the same size down here on the piston ends as was on the bushing in the center. Well, what is that? There's 3, 6, 9, 12. There's 16 wrist pins that are not usable. I will not use these wrist pins. The reason is on an engine, on a wrist pin, like I say, this is one out of a late model automobile, and you can do the footwork. I'm not going to use homework anymore. It's footwork. You can use the footwork and find a factory-made replacement wrist pin. Now, anytime that I see a part that's available for purchase, I usually buy one. And wrist pins is not a place. Just let me state this categorically. The finish on a wrist pin is measured in microns. That's how smooth a wrist pin is required to be for any degree of longevity. Look that up. Longevity of engine life. And this one right here, well, I'm not going to measure it. I can actually see the wire on that. I can see the step right there in using the shadow line. I can see that it has a wire in the center. But the reason I would not use this is the corrosion, the pitted. Any of these right here, the reason to not use them is they are pitted. They're corroded. And if I buff this up, if I put this in the lathe over there, and for all of the equipment that I have here in my shop, I tried to polish this wrist pin. I could never bring it back to a usable state. I mean, you could put this in that engine, you could shove it right up in there, bolt it down, the engine would start and run good. But what happens when you use, especially when you use a part, especially in this, this was definitely not the intent of this video today. But when you use a part, any of these, and you put these together, and you can, and what I'm doing is moving this wrist pin like this, okay, and I can feel that. I can feel that they are, you know, like an educated guess would be, 5 or 10 thousandths wire right there, maybe more than what should be. I can actually feel. Now there's quite a bit. You know, that's a good bit. So all of these are wore. Oh, that one's worse more than any of them. So all of these are worn beyond spec. So if I put this in the lathe or use any means of polishing this wrist pin up to try to save it, it'll be way undersized because you have to remove some metal and it'll be pitted. So just let this whole video be that the wrist pin is probably the closest, you know, rings are, you know, they're expansion fit. So they're a closer fit than the wrist pins, and valve seats are lapped in, so they're a little bit closer. But in general, the wrist pin is going to be the most precise. See, that's a lot of wire there. It's going to be the most precise measurement on a gas engine, on one of these one cylinders. Okay, if let's say that I turn this down with the equipment that I've got, go down 1200 emery, polish it, buff it, do all of that. I can never achieve the roundness that a centerless grinder produces. And what happens is when you use, especially this wrist pin, and when you use a part that is worn to start with, and especially if you mismatch parts, say this wrist pin, this bushing and rod was out of another engine, this was out of an engine, and both of them, you're going to put them together and use them. Okay, immediately that looseness is going to be more, because any high places is going to wear down really quick. So you got that to deal with on the get-go. Plus, if this is loose, if there's any looseness here, it only telescopes itself down to this Babbitt bearing. And probably, well, let's just. Oh, this was definitely not the intent of this video. But when you put this, when you assemble this piston onto this rod right here, there's a gap between the rod and the piston. So the piston can move sideways. And that is not a dimension on this type engines. That is not a dimension that you want to make a spacer for, especially a loose fitting spacer. You will find out, and you can teach it to yourself by doing it. To put a washer on here that's too big, a loose fitting washer to take up that space, and you start the engine and run it, there will be a noise in that engine different than if you had left that out. Any kind of loose object in there that's rattling around will produce a noise and a vibration. So it's just not good to put any kind of spacer between. Some pistons are fitted a tight fit to the rod. Now on those you would want to be in tolerance, but just in general you use the big end to align on the crankshaft to a line to where this rod is supposed to be in relationship to your piston. Some of them, if you put a spacer in here, you actually can make this rod be in a bind on the crankshaft. So you do want that free floating effect up there. But like I say, that's not the intent of this video, but that's the way it turned out. So let's just go ahead and load it up and go from here.